Hey legends, what's happening? We're getting into some more of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe on this episode. This is the first of a two-parter, so come back tomorrow for the review of part 2 of this episode. It's called The House of SHOKOTI. The House of SHOKOTI, part 1. For some reason I want to say that about SHOKOTI is what I really I'm fighting against saying. I don't know if it's my love of Star Trek Voyager, where you've got Chakotay as a character in there, but it's SHOKOTI, not Chakotay. SHOKOTI, not Shitoki. I'm getting mixed up now. I'm actually looking at the word and trying to say it, and my head is completely frazzled with it. But anyway, this episode here, that's an interesting one. We got a new character in Mask in this episode, and it turns out he's like a demon kind of sorcerer that just basically controls darkness, essentially. The first we come across him is along with Trapjaw in the sands of time. It's a desert. The sorceress has heard reports of this strange pyramid that has appeared. It appears and disappears essentially throughout the episode, so He-Man heads off to see if he can unravel the mystery of the whole thing. Man-at-Arms and Tila are busy. They're after space pirates in this episode, so he takes Orko and Ram-Man with him. I enjoy the character of Ram-Man. Really do enjoy him in these episodes, and we get a lot of him in this one. So off they go and get into the desert. They discover this fortress that's been attacked by these robotic spiders that have been created by Trapjaw. Mask is there. So He-Man and Ram-Man and Orko fight against these things, get the upper hand on them, and track down Trapjaw's lair. Take care of him, but Mask escapes, and He-Man decides they're going to head back to the palace to talk to, let me just get the names properly here, Malakva, who is an archaeologist. They need his help to see if they can track down this tomb, this pyramid, whatever it is. There's another little guy of him standing, and the two of them join the search for this tomb, and off they go again back to the desert. And they come across this guide that's going to help them on their way, but the guide is actually this character masquerading as this guide. So he's using his power to, we've seen Evelyn do it in the past, where she can assume the form of another person. This guy can do exactly the same thing, so he's leading them through the desert for his own gains as well. And he's got help from the lizard men in this episode as well. So there's a lot of confrontations and trouble that happens throughout this episode, and I'm just giving it a very quick overview right here. There's a huge sand beast that turns up at one point, and it's like a giant turtle that tunnels its way through the desert, and they have to fight that off at one point. And there's a lot of Prince Adam in this episode, and he only changes to He-Man whenever he's needed. He-Man isn't throughout the entire episode. He keeps changing back to Prince Adam because of the citizens. Essentially it's with them, like the outsiders and whatnot. So he's only changing when he's needed, and of course whenever there's a threat, I guess he'll change into He-Man and help him out. So by the end of the episode, the lizard men attack, and Mask shows himself. This guide shows himself as who he really is, the character of Mask. And we find out through Orko. Orko does the heroic thing in this episode and charges Mask head on and pulls the mask off his face, and whenever the mask is removed from him, it's just a hood and a dark inside. You don't actually see anything below the mask. He's just a body and a floating mask essentially, and the power in the mask knocks Orko out, and as Mask goes to retrieve his mask to put back on, the He-Man throws the sword of power at the mask on the ground and splits it in half, and this is the source of Mask's energy. With that gone, he pretty much dissolves, and this is kind of, it feels like the last we're going to see of him, at least for this episode. With the mask destroyed, he's no power, he can't maintain his physical form, he's finished. And at the end of the episode, countless times throughout the episode, Mask said that he was trying to awaken the House of Darkness. So of course, whatever SHOKOTI is must be the name of this ancient evil that's inside this tomb, and we're going to get to see that in episode 2. We close out with the news that Orko has been taken back to Castle Grayskull, and the sorceress is going to get him back on his feet, essentially. Which is weird to say because he has no feet. But yes, he sacrificed himself to save them well by the end of this episode, and has to get the sorceress to help him out. And we close out the episode with a shot of the tomb. They have found it at the end of this, before the last confrontation in the episode, and we see this image of a face in the wall, and we get it to be continued. So if memory serves, this is the first two-parter in the run of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I love this show. Classic 80s nostalgia at its finest. It's great. And of course we get a PSA at the end of each episode. Every time an episode finishes, one of the characters breaks the fourth wall and talks to the viewer, and this time it is Ram Man who comes on the screen and addresses the audience, and he's like, I had a lot to do in this episode today, and I had to ram a lot of stuff with my head. That's essentially what Ram Man is. He's like the, what do you call him, from the X-Men, I can't recall his name now. You know who I'm talking about. Pretty much just rammed everything with his head. You get that kind of character in a lot of the other shows like Marvel. Do you believe Spider-Man's universe? You've got Rhino, would be a similar sort of a character. I can't for the life of me figure out why I'm blanking on that R guy's name, but you get what I mean. Like, Ram Man has got this like armour over his head and shoulders. He's a wee stocky guy with springy legs, and like he just springs and uses himself as like a torpedo, knocks things out. So he did a lot of that in this episode in the fights, and he's like, you know what, don't be stupid like me. Use your head the way it was supposed to be used, not the way I use mine, but use it for thinking. Essentially is what the PSA is in this episode. Teach yourself to use your head properly, essentially. I enjoyed this episode and I can't wait to get into part 2 of it, because it was a good opener to the story. So that's going to do it for this episode. Come back tomorrow for the continuation.